This is Britain, a proud island nation built on conquest, industry, and some deeply upsetting food. Over the past 1,000 years, we've invented some of the strangest, driest, and most tragically beige meals in human history, as well as a few absolute bangers. So today, I'm going to go on a food tour across London, eating my way through 10 dishes, each one from a different era in British history. From plague-era meat pies to modern-day snacks. I'll be stopping at cafes, pubs, chippies and curry houses, each one representing a key moment in this country's long, baffling relationship with food. This is the story of Britain on a plate, and it's probably going to give me gout. 10 dishes, 10 eras, one man's slow descent into meat-induced madness. Welcome to the history of British food. Our journey begins in the Middle Ages, a time where the average British diet consisted of stale bread, ale, and things they found on the floor. Food wasn't cooked to taste good, it was cooked not to kill you. And at the heart of it all was the meat pie. This dish is so established in British cuisine that I immediately see one coming out of the train station.
I could have gone to a restaurant, but it was right in front of me, so why not? The Scottish Kitchen is a little pop-up tent that you get outside of Euston Station occasionally. Really simple. This dish has been around in the UK for thousands of years. It's actually our first dish. So, it's salty, it's savoury, and the pastry holds it all in place. Now, the ancient concept of meat pies dates back to pre-Roman times in the UK. Their pie pastry was basically like an edible Tupperware, not something you can chew like this, with the crust being rock hard, made out of flour and oil, designed just to keep the innards fresh. Nowadays, we've sort of perfected the pastry, so we don't need to throw it away or use it as storage. It's actually edible now, which is nice because you can just bite into it like this. Pies even feature a lot in British fiction. Shakespeare killed off 2 of his characters by baking them into a pie. The Victorian legend Sweeney Todd allegedly killed his customers and sent them downstairs to Miss Lovett's pie shop to put them into one of these. But where do we go next after the meat pie?
Somehow this survived the Black Death, and frankly I can see why. No one would ever dare steal it. So next up, we leap forward to the Georgian era, and a food that tried to be portable, elegant and refined. This is Fortnum and Mason's, a Piccadilly institution. It's fancy, it's expensive, and it smells like tea, truffle and generational wealth. So naturally, I'm here to eat something that looks like it fell off the back of a Greggs lorry. In 1738, the people at Fortnum and Mason claimed to have invented the Scotch Egg. They say it was designed as a portable snack for travellers, but let's be honest, it's essentially a heart-clogging hand grenade made of sausage.
I've got 2 different Scotch eggs. They don't have your traditional Scotch egg. Egg, sausage meat, breadcrumbs. It's as simple as that. These are a bit weird. So there's a clove smoked venison Scotch egg here, and a very interesting, which I had to get, a prawn toast Scotch egg. Now, if you're not sure what prawn toast is, it might be a British Chinese food. I'm not sure if it's eaten across the world. It's just a ball of breakfast. So that is very good. And it tastes like prawn toast. That's a really good twist on a Scotch egg. Let's try the clove smoked venison one. It's a little bit wet, this one, annoyingly. I'm not usually a big fan of venison, but that's certainly an interesting egg. So despite its name, a Scotch egg actually has nothing to do with Scotland. It's a common misconception. I get it in my comment sections a lot. To Scotch actually refers to mince meat. So that's where the Scotch comes from. It's got nothing to do with Scotland. It was invented right here in England. People have even taken the Scotch egg to the absolute extreme, using ostrich eggs and creating a world record-breaking attempt.
And after that ball of meaty madness, I'm off to Spitalfields Market to find something a little bit more sweet. It's massive, it's busy, and I did get quite lost, but I found Humble Crumble. Crumble is also another very British dessert, but Humble Crumble serve rhubarb and custard here. By the 1800s, Britain had conquered half the world and decided it deserved dessert. So naturally, the Victorians took a medicinal plant and boiled it with sugar. This is rhubarb and custard, a dish that started as a health tonic and somehow became a national pudding.
It's actually been a long time since I've had rhubarb and custard, and I'm realising very quickly why it's still an iconic British combo. That marries so well. You've got the tartness and sweetness of the rhubarb, really, really sharp, but then the custard and the softness, creaminess of the custard really cuts through it. It's almost a perfect combo. Rhubarb was once so prized that Yorkshire became the capital of it. The famed rhubarb triangle in West Yorkshire produced 90% of the world's winter forced rhubarb. There was even a special train named the Rhubarb Special, which would bring 200 tons of the stuff down to London markets every day at the peak of the rhubarb craze. A train full of rhubarb shows you how seriously the Victorians took their pie fillings. Custard, at least the instant powdered kind, came from a chemist in 1837 named Alfred Bird. He invented egg-free custard powder so that his allergic wife could enjoy it without, dying. His cornflour concoction of instant custard became an instant staple, and you can probably still find it in most British households. And it's not really surprising that this was so popular. I don't know who figured out to put this sour stalk in a bunch of sugar and stick it with custard, but whoever it was needs an award.
And after that sugar rush, we're moving on to our next stop. Because by the 1860s, Britain was knee-deep in soot, steam and child labour. But amidst the smog and misery, a culinary marvel emerged: fish and chips. A dish so simple, yet so revolutionary, it became the sustenance of the working class. And where better to visit Poppy's, an old-school fish and chip diner that's been selling the dish since the 1950s.
Fried fish and chips was already a common thing in France and Belgium, but it wasn't until the 19th century that it was brought over here. Credit often goes to Joseph Marlin, a Jewish Londoner who opened the first fish and chip shop in 1860, serving fish fried in the Jewish fashion and chips. But meanwhile, folks up in Lancashire say that a man named John Lees was the first one. So it's debated. By the 1930s, fish and chips had become the unofficial food of the UK, with over 35,000 chippies across the UK. That's almost one in every street corner nationwide. Today it's closer to 10,000, but it's still very close to the heart of the British people. Even in World War II, where fish and chips was so important for morale, Winston Churchill refused to ration it, making sure that fish and chips, the good companions, stayed on British plates throughout the war. Which, when you think about it, means that cod and potato kind of beat the Nazis. It's fried fish, it's fried potato with, if you're lucky, a bit of lemon, salt and pepper, and maybe some tartar sauce. You're not going to be writing home about it. It's not complex flavours, but what it is satisfying. Things evolved as well. In certain parts of the country, it really depends what you put on your fish and chips. With the North usually going for gravy, the South going for, salt and vinegar, and the Midlands going for curry sauce, which is my personal favourite.
And after this, it's time for something sweet again.
So, this next dish was impossible to find. I tried all over London, I tried doing a bunch of different internet research, and I could not find a single place that would serve me this next dish, which, out of all of them, seems to be the only one that's falling out of favour. So we'll have to ask some questions why. But in order to get one, I'm going to have to do this back home. So, smash cut to my kitchen. Now, it's been a long time since I've had a jam roly poly. The entire thing is very stodgy, quite heavy, and it does really require some sort of cream or custard. I can still get one, but it will be from a freezer aisle in a supermarket. And the fact that I couldn't find this anywhere probably means it's fallen out of British eating habits and most likely left in the 70s. I think that the jam roly poly has probably been overtaken by the much lighter, easier to eat Swiss roll. This dish first popped up around the 1840s, 1850s. It's an incredibly simple dessert to be made, funnily enough. And in an era before central heating, a big, heavy, hot slab of stodge is really what you need. It's cheap, cheerful, and it's not likely to put meat on your bones, but it will put suet in your stomach.
After surviving dessert that doubles as a blunt weapon, we move into the post-war years. It's the 1950s. Britain is broke, knackered and traumatised by 2 world wars and a rationing chart that made boiled cabbage seem like a treat. But out of the rubble and the rubble-flavoured food came a hero. A dish so proud, so utterly excessive, that it could only have been invented by a nation desperate to feel powerful again. This is the full English breakfast, which you can find in any cafe across the country. So I've headed up the road from where I am to find this place. It's 6 dead animals, a handful of fungus and beans. You eat this and immediately feel 20% more patriotic and 40% closer to death.
So the full English breakfast, aka the fry-up, was supercharged by Victorian landed gentry trying to show off. In country estates in the 1800s, hosting like a lavish, massive breakfast spread was a bit of a status symbol, basically. A pre-hunt social feast where nobles would lay out half their larder for their guests, you know, just to boast, basically. Look at all this food I've got. It was both hospitality and a bit of a humble brag. Factory workers and coal miners adopted hearty fry-ups to survive the grind of hard labour. And in World War II, as soon as meat and eggs came off the ration, people were piling it high on their breakfast plates again by the 50s. And the 60s were the golden age of the greasy spoon calf, serving up bacon, sausage and fried bread to anyone who needed to cover from either a long shift or a long night at the pub. A proper full English is debatable. This one has hash browns, which isn't really traditional, but I feel like it's a commonplace item now in modern day English breakfast. But a proper full English is usually the works, so bacon, eggs, fried, scrambled, however you like, sausages, baked beans, grilled tomato, mushrooms, toast, and sometimes some black pudding, but that can be quite divisive.
Up next is a dish created to celebrate Queen Elizabeth's coronation, and it somehow involves cold chicken and apricots. In 1953, Britain needed a win. The empire was falling apart, the war was over, but rationing still sort of lingered, and morale was somewhere between meh and cold toast. So to celebrate the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II, we did what any great nation would do. We invented a curry. A cold, mayonnaise-based curry, of course. This is Coronation Chicken, and yes, it was designed to be eaten at a buffet without frightening the aristocracy. This is what happens when a nation wants flavour, but is also deeply, deeply afraid of it.
This dish was invented for royalty, literally. So in 1953, for Queen Elizabeth II's coronation banquet, food writer Constance Spry and the chef Rosemary Hume actually clubbed together this thing. At the time, they called it Poulet Reine Elizabeth on the menu. Basically, to make it sound fancy, it's a cold chicken salad dressed in curry spices and mayo with a few diced apricots in there. The recipe was inspired by Britain's love affair with Indian food. It uses curry powder, which is an old colonial shortcut for some flavour, and it kept the flavours mild and sweet to make sure it doesn't scandalise any 1950s palates. Although this sandwich does have a predecessor. In 1935, for George V's Silver Jubilee, there was a similar curried chicken sandwich called Jubilee Chicken. The guys who invented this just gave it a bit of a rebrand. And 70 years on, Coronation Chicken is still a British standard. It's become the UK's favourite way to jazz up old leftover poultry. And ironically, originally a dish made for foreign dignitaries, is now a commonplace food all around the UK.
Coronation Chicken was the end of an era. Cold, confused, and quietly clinging to an empire. But in decades that followed, something incredible happened. The empire struck back with an actual curry.
And I'm really starting to struggle. I can't eat this much food. I'm gonna have to take someone to help me eat. So I'm walking across town, I'm gonna find a mate of mine, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the nearest curry house, and I can guarantee you we'll find this next dish.
Because in the 1970s, Britain was culturally confused, economically unstable, and wearing flared trousers with absolutely no shame. And out of this swirling mess of inflation and polyester came a national dish. Chicken Tikka Masala. A meal so British, it doesn't exist anywhere else, and so Indian, the actual country of India, would like nothing to do with it.
So I could tell you about the history of Chicken Tikka Masala, but I have someone here that's going to do a better job.
So the rumour goes, in the 1970s, a Glaswegian man complained about his curry being too dry. Now the chef panicked. He thought, well, tomato soup, cream and spices, and thus the chicken tikka masala was born. How true is this? Quite unclear. There's definitely been some Indian dishes beforehand that have existed, but the curry has a lot of stories associated with it. In 2001, the Foreign Secretary at the time celebrated it as a dish of multiculturalism. It was a Pakistani chef using an Indian recipe up in Scotland, and it was so celebrated celebrated that in 2009 they decided to try and get EU protected status. So think Parma ham, think champagne, those real cuisine defining recipes. Now, sadly it didn't work. But we are left with what is truly a fantastic British dish with real historical legacy, some slightly less savoury, given that it's got some slight tones of British colonialism, but on the whole, it's bloody delicious and should definitely be celebrated.
Chicken tikka masala was Britain's awakening. Suddenly, flavour was allowed. And so, the nation asked itself, if we can do this to curry, what can we do to a pudding? By the 1990s, British food had finally started to change its reputation. Gone were the overcooked vegetables, the beige horror replaced with bistros, beards and balsamic drizzle. And leading the charge was this, sticky toffee pudding. A dessert so rich, so dense and so deeply unnecessary, it made the entire nation fall in love with sugar again. And there's no better place to try it than here, as they do a very interesting miso-inspired sticky toffee pudding. It's dark, it's moist, and it comes drowning in hot toffee sauce. It's like someone baked a Victorian chimney sweep and served him with cream.
An absolute British classic, right? You'd think this sticky sweet dessert was something that came from the 1800s, but no, actually, it's rumoured to come around about the 60s or 70s. There's multiple different arguments around its origin. Hotels in Cumbria and Aberdeenshire both make claims to it, and there's even claims that 2 RAF Canadian pilots came over and the whole thing was just inspired by a maple syrup dessert that they had over here. It's basically a sugar coma on a plate, and by the 1980s and 90s, it was a household staple. You could find it in most restaurants and homes across the country. And it's now considered a very traditional British dessert, usually topped with custard or vanilla ice cream. I've got vanilla ice cream on this one. It's an absolutely decadent, sensational dessert that does send me back in time a bit. I've been having sticky toffee pudding my whole life without even realising its origins.
Sticky toffee pudding was a turning point, proof that Britain could do comfort food well if we just added 800 millilitres of sauce. But to understand where we are now, we have to look back, the nation's true unifier. And no, not the royal family, Greggs. Greggs is an incredibly popular bakery chain here in the UK, so popular in fact, it beats McDonald's to the #1 spot. And here we are at the present day. The empire is gone, the economy is somewhat fictional, and the nation is more divided than ever, except on one point. This is the sausage roll, a pastry that unites the builder, the banker, the hungover student, and even the Prime Minister, who's probably had one this morning. Greggs was founded in 1938, but its sausage roll has become the defining food of modern Britain. It's cheap, it's flaky, it's beige, and it's 100% us. This food item fuels people all over the country every single day, and if I had to represent British cuisine in a handheld snack, it's this. From plague pies to pastry glory, from meat in coffins to vegan sausage diplomacy, I've eaten 1,000 years of British food. Some of it was brilliant, some of it was beige. Every bite tells a story of conquest, class, survival, and gravy. So what have we learned? That history is best served hot? And that Britain, despite everything, still knows how to put something stupid in pastry. If you enjoyed this deeply irresponsible act of historical digestion, you'll love my book, The Official Sandwiches of UK Towns and Cities. It's full of recipes, jokes, and probably shouldn't be in print. Just like this video, link is below. Subscribe if you want more food history, rage eating, and meals that make your ancestors cry. And if you didn't enjoy this, you're probably the kind of person who puts ketchup on a roast dinner. Either way, thanks for watching.